Okay, Matt, here's your new Stryker 497 HPC and your new mic, SR-76. I just did a trade with one of my local buddies. Sometimes guys ask me about trades, and I'm still an operator, so besides, the fact that some guys ask me if I want to do trades when it comes to my business, there's times where I definitely don't, because a lot of times with used equipment, it's hard to get rid of. But from an operator standpoint, if I have something here, and it's something cool that somebody shows me, like that Synchron, that power juicer, I traded with my local buddy, for one of these, and he sounds excellent on it, and he's running it on like a Galaxy 66V3, I think is what they call it. I mean, he sounds great. So, for people to go on the internet and say that mics aren't good and stuff, I mean, every mic has a purpose. I have said in the past that I don't care for the SR-198, and I will stick with that, because I think that microphone suits a purpose for radios that are all ripped apart inside, and they're just set up wide open for AM, and just total disregard for any type of spectral purity and stuff. That's where those mics work the best. If you have a properly set up radio, they don't work very good. So that's something you got to ask yourself when you're using that kind of mic, is if the radio has like no limiter in it, or it has all these weird mods done that aren't necessary. That's usually when they sound good. But if you put it on a nice aligned radio with a good waveform and all that stuff, they generally don't. This mic sounded really good on his Galaxy. I have no clue. Well, I do know where the Galaxy came from, and it is a reputable business, so they do a good job as well. But I never looked at it on my equipment or anything like that, so I have no clue. But he sounds good, and it looks good on my other radio where I can see the waterfall and stuff, so I'm assuming everything's good. But the mic sounded good. He did make a couple quick changes to the tone or something, because it was a little bassy in the beginning, but all in all, it sounded good. I still haven't tried one. I've just been selling these, and you got a little bit of a deal on this one with the radio, so that works out good for you. I'm not going to hook it up and use it. I'm going to let you be the first one to open it. You just have to get a AAA battery. It takes one AAA, I think. So we'll get this out. We'll get it converted. We'll get it set up really quick for you, and I'll show you what it's doing on the power meter, and I'll show you the waveform on AM. You can see mine sitting there. I did keep one for myself. I'm really happy with it. I found an old Minuteman 2. That's what I've been talking on it. It doesn't mean that that's going to stay there, but another one of my mics that I picked up years ago. Sometimes you want to use stuff, because if you don't use it, a lot of times it stops working. So been using that and getting good reports. It's like a handheld Silver Eagle. I just had a thought here while I was taking this out. I just did a video on that new CB 900 Pro from Radio Oddity, and when you have that radio in your hand versus this thing feels like a 10-pound brick compared to how light the other radio was. I just figured I'd throw that out there, because it is definitely a much more beefy radio, that's for sure. Alright, Matt, so we got your radio here. RF power all the way up is at about 27. So this is probably where I recommend running it all the time. These aren't really going to be the type of radio where you're going to want to run a low dead key. This is technically like an amplified radio already, so you probably, I guess to each his own on what they want to do in the hobby with AM and stuff, but if you're going to run this into something else better be pretty beefy, because it's going to be able to, and there is a lot of pieces of equipment out there that guys are running already that can handle the full input of this radio no problem. So something like that is what I would recommend. Nothing small. I'm not a big entrepreneur with amplifiers and stuff, so I don't have a lot of advice, but you better be able to put something in this radio that can handle about 100 watts, or whatever you might. And I'm not saying you in person in general are going to do that, but I'm just saying in general, if you want to run something bigger with this, you need to be able to at least handle what this radio is throwing in, that piece of equipment. So if it can't handle it, then I wouldn't mess with it when using a radio like this. So here it is on the spectrum analyzer, and this is fully modulated here. So this is 20 kilohertz, as we're seeing here, so it looks really nice. And this is resolution bandwidth 30 hertz, so we're seeing everything there, and it's real clean, so that's why I like these. Here is the oscilloscope up here. There's the modulated signal there. Let me do this so we can see. Looks really nice. You can take it a little more aggressive, but then it gets really dirty really fast. So as I do this, see all that crap starts to come up. It's flat topping massively there, and then it gets to the point where it's just full on distortion there, and it's just horrible. So you don't want to do that. And keep it nice and round and clean. So about like that is good. So enlarge this a little bit so we can see a little bit better. But again, that's the right way to go about it, just about like that. So it stays nice and clean. Obviously at the low dead key I set it to 2 watts, so I don't really recommend running it down there, but you know, if you want to, you can. I don't see why anybody would want to buy a high power radio like this to run it at a low dead key, but I did give you that option if you want to. Obviously when it's down low like that, the mod will drop off quite a bit, so just be aware of that. But you know, that's the nature of these kind of radios, so they're made for running at pretty much everything. That's why it has this beefy fan in there and stuff, and you'll probably hear that a lot when you use the radio. It's temperature controlled, so it will kick on from time to time. I'm going to set your FM power now. So although I can set it high like this, I still don't really recommend anybody run it at 100 for an extended period of time. But actually right now it's not letting me get up there. The radio is super hot, so, and the MOSFETs probably are a little tired right now. They're hot, but there's that. About 98 is close enough. And then all the way down, I'm going to set you to 2 point something there, just for a little bit of a give and take. That's at 99. Okay, now we're going to check the FM deviation. I don't think it's really gonna, we're not going to have to do a whole lot here with that. Just 1 second. Alright, so the FM deviation is about 2.3. So that's about as far as you can take it on this. So it's more for like a, you know, like what CB would want. So you're not going to get 4 out of this or anything for amateur radio, unfortunately. But it doesn't have repeater offsets or anything like that anyway, so it really wouldn't do us much good there. Only for FM simplex, that's all. Okay, so we're back on your radio. I did dim the display a little bit for you. Actually, I think I dimmed it almost all the way. It will basically dim and then it'll go back to bright, so you kind of have to stop it. You have to guess a little bit, I guess. Just got a 636 on here. And the talkback's working good. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's actually up all the way. So this is FM. So this is our power again. About 100. You can see your SWR meter's working perfect. So let's just click on a little bit of echo and kind of go crazy with that for a minute. Check. Check. 1, 2. 1, 2. Hello. Hello. Radio. Radio. So that's working. Obviously, there's a preferred way if you want to, you know. Check. 1, 2. It's a little bit tricky, but how do I have it on mine? Yeah, something like that. Check. 1, 2. It's a little bit too much, but 1, 2, 3. Check, check. Hello. 1, 2. That's better. So it gets a little crazy if you go a little too crazy with it, but Got some beeps. Really can't hear those through the talkback, which is actually nice. If you were going to use the beeps, which most guys probably won't, but they're there if you need them. So I'm going to kill that talkback. We're going to go to AM, just here, and we'll sit here and let the radio kind of see what it's going to do. So it's about 27. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Check, check. Hello. 1, 2, 1, 2. Radio. Hello, radio. So about 103. So again, they do about 100 watts, you know, give or take a few watts here and there on the right power meter. If you don't have the right power meter, you're never going to see that power. You would have to turn that mod up all the way, probably, and probably still wouldn't see it on the dozy. But I don't run a dozy here for my testing or anything like that, so it's not practical for what I'm doing. But here's the spectrum analyzer. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, check, check, check. Remember, notice that 0 dBm line here. So hello radio, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, check, check. We're still pretty much under that. There will be a few occasions where maybe we're coming over it. Now again, a high power radio like this with a high level of audio, you have to sacrifice a little bit of something to give the radio what it has. Obviously, you can turn your mic gain down some. It's about halfway there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Check, check. Hello, radio. It's a little cleaner there on the output, and it still does like 80 watts. So, you know, I'm not going to starve the radio for what its potential is just because. I mean, I know that most guys on AM want as much as they can anyways. So, although it's not really my preferred way, I did the same thing with this radio because there's a certain area that you just got to kind of go with, and these are not the kind of radio where you're going to sit there and try to sacrifice. You buy this radio for a reason, and it is what it is at that point. So it's definitely not pinching, it's not flat topping, any of that stuff. So it's as clean as it can be, let's just say that, based on the design. And again, with the 1 kilohertz test tone, we can see the limiter works perfect. Now with voice, the limiter, not as reactive with voice. That's one thing we have to pay attention to with certain radios, is the limiter sometimes, you know, it's a little less aggressive, and that's what I think most would want. But with the 1K steady tone in there, it's very aggressive and it's very much working. So that's exactly what matters. So, you know, show it both ways. You guys be the judge of what you like. I think most guys like these radios that have them. I think it's like a powerhouse. It's a great looking radio. So I'm just about done with it, Matt. I'm just going to check the receiver for you. I actually have the light blue, but I don't know why it looks purple. I don't know why that color does that. Where's the white? That's the one I like, but then it looks pink. So I don't know why the colors never, unless I'm going colorblind or something, which I don't think I am. But all in all, they're sweet radios for what they are. I'm glad I was able to get one for myself out of the batch. So I noticed that they do have, yours isn't too bad, but there is a little bit of like and it's not really a play, but this is something I want to point out that I've noticed, is there's a little bit, just a little bit of movement here, but you know, once you get a hold of it and go, it goes. So I don't know if they were all like that. I don't have enough experience with these because, you know, I've sold a few here and there over the last couple of years, but once you go either direction, it doesn't hesitate, it doesn't stop. So I don't see anything wrong with it or anything. It's working fine, but just be aware that if you just kind of do this, it does move a little bit. And I don't know, maybe that's how it was designed to be, so that way there's a little bit of, like, if you're in a truck or something and you reach up there and you just grab it, maybe there's a little bit of play there for a reason. That way you don't just grab it and break it or something. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you know, it definitely changes channels fine and everything. And mine's actually worse, so mine has a little bit more play. But that's something I did notice and I wanted to point out to you. One other thing I noticed here on the bottom, it's really hard to see now, but it's starting to, the protective film was starting to kind of, it's actually here, you can see it. So there is a protective film all over the front of this. I'll let you decide on whether you want to leave that on there or not. So the last thing I'm going to do is just check the receiver. Okay, it's right on S9 at -67. That seems to be about where all the companies set them for 10 meter CBs and stuff like that. 10 meter radios and CB radios. So I don't change it. I just leave it the way the factory does it. Alright, that's where it's coming in at 12 dB. -111 with 30% modulation. And there's our 12 dB. So it's working really good. Mine is about just like that also. I can't box it yet because the heatsink fins are super hot. The fan's off, but you'll find that the radio could still be hot and the fans aren't running, and that's normal. The heatsink is just kind of dissipating more heat off the chassis, but the fan will usually run shortly after you start talking, and it will continue to run until it reaches a certain level inside on the radio and decides to shut itself off. But the heatsink does get kind of hot also, and it's not burning to the touch now or anything, but it still is pretty hot. So I was really having to go with this one, doing some testing and some modulation checks on the equipment and stuff. So it's definitely robust, there's no question about it, and they can get hot and they can handle it. I think there's no issue there. There's also a little bit of ventilation here. I would recommend wherever you mount this, don't have these blocked, because whatever ventilation this is offering, you want to make sure that you take advantage of that. And if you have something up against the radio, it's going to block it, and then it's going to make that fan work harder than it needs to and all that stuff. So, because I think actually these might be taking in air, they may be taking fresh air in, and then the fan is circulating that inside. I'm not 100% sure, but that's my theory on that. Because when it gets really hot, I don't really feel anything coming out. I think it could be allowing stuff to come in. But this is the newest one, like you were asking for. It's got the SWR bridge in the channel selector now. And yeah, I haven't talked to Stryker about anything. I think you were the one on YouTube that was saying that you did. And yeah, I don't believe that the older 497 HPCs you can add that feature to it. So it's a new feature. They didn't really say much about it, but it is a cool feature. This is still active too. When you key up, you can change that color here. So, but now you can easily see your SWR here. As far as frequency counters go, I still haven't figured out any viable method for a frequency counter that we can plug in to the jack on the back. I wish Stryker would make one, since they make such a nice fancy radio. I think they should make a freak counter to go with it. So if Stryker ever watches my videos, I think you guys should make a freak counter. It'd be really beneficial for this radio. Even though it doesn't have sideband, I still think, you know, guys might enjoy being able to kind of see where they are, aside from getting like a road map or something, or using like an aftermarket meter that you can use with coax cable or something like that. You would rather, I think, Stryker, since this customer bought the mic with the radio and everything, I'm not saying that he would have bought the freak counter too with it, but if you guys offered a Stryker freak counter or something that might just be able to get like 3M taped, that tape that you can remove obviously, but it's that really heavy, I can't remember what that stuff's called, but I've used it in my car before to mount stuff. You guys probably know what I'm talking about, but you could put a freak counter like on the top or something, it would stay there. I think if Stryker offered something like that, I think, you know, somebody didn't need a mic, they may be inclined still to buy a freak counter. So that's just my thought there, for anyone that cares about that. Alright, Matt, we're going to let this one cool off, and let's just do one more power check, I guess, before we go. Alright, so, oh, I got to set the frequency on it still. It's about 100 hertz high. It's not horrible for AM, but I'd like it to get better. So again, this is still the 636 static, and they're just talking into the microphone with the lip guard up to my lip, and yeah, it's working good. So about 100 watts of clean power. And hello, radio. Check 1, 2. Hello. You know, you can see with different voice peaks and all that stuff what happens on the spectrum analyzer. So it still looks pretty darn good for as much power as we're throwing out of this thing. So 105, somewhere in there can be expected. So you can run it like this all the time if you want to. I don't foresee any problems with the radio. You know, they're made to run at full power. It's not going to be an issue with these. You can let them. You can pretty much let them have it. All right, Matt. Thanks a lot. 73.